Well, my comfort level is definitely trolling crankbaits. There's no doubt about that. Grew up on the Great Lakes, driving a charter boat, and actually it took me 3 or 4 years of tournament fishing to get comfortable fishing out of at that time, an 18-foot boat, because I grew up in a 28-footer. And dragging crankbaits and downriggers and dipsy divers and all that kind of stuff looked like a salmon trawler more than a walleye fisherman. But I've taken those skills that I learned then and developed and found ways to use them on a smaller scale, and as definitely my comfort level. For sure, I try that first wherever I go, and I don't care if it's March 23rd tournament on a river or if it's middle of summer and it actually makes sense. I'm going to try dragging a crankbait around first. Oh, without a doubt, my favorite Berkley product has become the 3-inch gulp minnow. And to give one tip would, I could sit here all day with you, fill your thing up on different ways to fish those things. The biggest tip I can offer for using it is don't be afraid to use it. And I know it sounds like a sales pitch because I do wear a Berkley patch on my shirt and I wear a Berkley hat when I fish, and I do get sponsored, pretty heavily by Pure Fishing. They're one of my better sponsors, but the stuff is simply amazing. I can't say enough how well it works. And where it came clear to me was an instructional event I was part of last April at Chamberlain, South Dakota. I was working a Shields event where the pros are brought in to train sales staff on using products so they can relay that to customers, because if a customer knows more about using it, they're going to catch more fish on it and buy more. So we were out fishing with Berkley Gulp, and we issued challenges to ourselves about how many different ways can we catch fish on Berkley Gulp. And believe it or not, this was the middle of April, so it's pretty cold, right during the spawn or just a little post spawn. And we put two bottom bouncers down on the same side of the boat, one with a live fathead minnow and one with a plain #2 hook and a 3-inch Berkley Gulp minnow. We caught 13 walleyes on the Gulp minnow before we caught a fish on the live minnow. 13. They're 3 feet apart on the same side of the boat. The minnow is first. We're driving forward and they're seeing the minnow first and eating the plain gulp in a rod holder on the side of the boat. And that proved it to me right there that, the biggest tip to using it is go use it. I don't care how you use it, just get it in the water and it's going to catch fish. I mean, it works great on a jig, it works great on a rig. Bottom bouncers, I've cut pieces off now and I tip them on my crankbaits when I'm trolling. It holds up better, it doesn't fall off the hook as easy, but I found no wrong way to use it yet. And that's just incredible because I can't think of any other product that all you have to do is get it on your hook and it's going to work. That's one of the only ones I found that just throw it over the side of the boat and drag it around and you're going to catch a fish on it. Gotcha. Well, a couple different reasons why I'll tip a crankbait. We'll start with that first. One thing it does is changes the profile. So when it's in the water, it might make it look a little bit bigger. Sometimes, they don't want a #5 because it's too small, and a #7 might be too big. So if I put a little piece maybe on the middle hook or the back hook, doesn't matter. It just changes that profile a little bit, and it might fit that in between what they're looking for. The other reason I tip my crankbaits a lot is when I want to troll faster. And I know that it's not going to make sense at first, but you take a lure like a deep diving thunder stick or a reef runner, some of those big baits that have a really hard wobble when they go fast, it's hard to go 3 miles, 3.5 miles an hour because you can't keep them running straight. They actually wiggle so much that they go out of control. Well, if I take a half of a gulp crawler or even the 3-inch gulp fry, which I've been using a lot of lately for tipping, and put that on that middle hook, it changes the center of gravity of that lure. It doesn't wiggle as hard, and now I control it 3.5 miles an hour, and it doesn't go all over the place. It doesn't go haywire. It stays tuned better, and I can actually fish it at a speed that I want to fish it. So those are some of the reasons that I tip my crankbaits. How I do it, again, usually on a bait that doesn't dive real hard, meaning a stick bait or a #5 size lure, maybe a deep junior thunder stick, something like that. I tip them on the back hook because they can still pull that down. It wiggles pretty good still. It doesn't kill the action. On the bigger baits, like I said, the full-size thunder sticks, the reef runners, bomber long ace, stuff like that, I usually use either a half of a crawler or that gulp fry, and I put it on the front treble hook. And again, it changes the profile and slows those baits down by changing the center of gravity. Yeah, when I'm trolling, I like to go with monofilament first if I can, if the situation permits it. It seems lately, and especially living on Devil's Lake in North Dakota, the situation doesn't make sense to use monofilament line all that much. But if I'm fishing fairly snag-free bottom, or I'm out in the open water somewhere, I love the monofilament just because of the advantages it gives me for landing fish.
What monofilament?
I'm using Trilene Sensation. I use a 12-pound test because the line diameter of 12-pound Sensation is very, very close to 10-pound XT, which for years was the baseline for all of the dive charts, whether it's a manufacturer or Mark Romanek's book, the Precision Trolling book. You need to hit those numbers because of the importance of putting your lure in the right place. The 12-pound Sensation works good. It ties good knots. It's fairly abrasion resistant, and it's a lot more limp than the XT from the old days. That stiff XT sometimes can just be a pain, especially in cold weather. So I like the Sensation. It works year round a little better. But again, I'm not faced with those situations as much as we were years ago when all our tournaments seemed to be on the Great Lakes. When I'm fishing the bottom or snaggy conditions or open water where I need a stronger line because there's a lot of big fish, the Great Lakes there too come into play sometimes, I've switched pretty much exclusively to the Spider Wire Stealth, the braided line, because I can get 5 more pounds of break strength and still get the same 4-pound diameter that, again, the trolling books are written on. 10-4 Fireline's a great line, don't get me wrong, it's incredible. You got the nose stretch, you got the thin diameter, your lures get down there. But if I can get all those benefits with a 15-pound line, that gives me 5 more pounds for margin of error. I can stick a crankbait in a log in Devil's Lake and still get it back. Or I can have 2 or 3 pike chew on it maybe before I have to tie that knot. And on a tournament day especially, if I don't have to retie after every fish, I only have to retie after every other one because I've got stronger line. That saves me time. Time means I can catch more fish, so it's become important. Well, again, for bottom bouncer fishing, I love to use a bait casting reel for my bottom bouncers. It just makes life so much simpler. I like to have a reel with a flip and switch. They're getting harder and harder to find. I've got some old Abus that I don't even have paint left on them, and I won't give them up because, just replacing those flip and switch reels are getting tougher and tougher. But because of using a bait casting reel, it lets me use different line than you would on a spinning reel, obviously. And you can go with those heavy-duty stiff lines. Berkley XT is a great line for bottom bouncer fishing because I don't need limp line. I'm going to have an ounce minimum usually, up to 3 or 4 ounces dragging on there. So being soft and supple doesn't matter. It's easy to tie knots with. They hold really good. So I'll beef it up pretty good, and I'll use 10, maybe even 12 pound. Again, because it's not a finesse technique. For my leaders, if I'm live bait fishing behind a bottom bouncer with just a plain hook, I like that Trilene Sensation a lot. Works really, really good. 6 pound, 8 pound. Again, it's a little thinner diameter, so my bait can swim pretty well. I'm saving that line diameter friction in the water, and my minnows or crawlers or leeches can move around. I will use fluorocarbon quite a bit with live bait as well when it's really clear. But one of the things I ask a lot of folks to remember is fluorocarbon sinks. It's very dense, it's very heavy. And if you put a 6-foot leader of mono on with a fathead minnow, and you put a 6-foot leader with fluorocarbon on and a fathead minnow, you're not making the same presentation at all. It's not even close. I guarantee you that fathead minnow, if it's not dragging in the bottom of the lake, is really fighting hard not to. So you got to shorten your leaders up a little bit, and you got to pay attention to your bait more. If you're one of those guys that puts one minnow on, and if you don't catch a fish by noon, you still have him on there, with fluorocarbon, he'll be dead because he can't fight the weight of that line, so you change your bait more often. If I'm using spinners behind bouncers, I love the fluorocarbon leader materials. Not the fluorocarbon fishing line, but the line that's designated as leader material. Very, very stiff, very abrasion resistant, and that's what I want for a spinner. I don't want my spinner twisting and turning and getting tangled up. I want that stiff leader, I want that abrasion resistance, and boy, the stuff is really tough. 15-pound fluorocarbon. You can catch walleyes all day long on one spinner and not have to worry about it.